Good evening and welcome back to the channel. This video is not financial advice. I'm not a financial advisor. Do your own research, make your own decisions. All right, guys. So I'm going to walk you through my general thought process about this whole situation, right? And how I come to the conclusions that I do about certain things. Now, again, I don't care what you guys decide to do. It really doesn't matter to me at all. I wanted to tell as many people as I possibly could what was going on with this, because even if you decide I don't want to have anything to do with crypto, there's still some degree of preparation and decision making that people have to make once they understand what's really happening with this. So that's really been the goal of my channel, is to tell as many people as I possibly can that for whatever reason, a lot of factual information is not making its way into the mainstream, and a lot of people are being deceived right now. All right. So let's just, going back to yesterday. So what I have seen over the last year and a half, 2 years, is a global implementation process with blockchain technology / distributed ledger technology. And this is across the board. It's not specific to one country, one industry, or anything like that. And I mean, just yesterday, Army, Navy, the Air Force, the Department of Homeland Security, the CDC, NASA, the DTCC. So, and I could go on and on and on forever. But many of the blockchain networks that have been implemented all over the world are companies that I'm heavily invested in. All right. Now, couldn't they just use the blockchain network, but essentially ban crypto and destroy all cryptocurrencies? Well, I understand why, in theory, that sounds like it makes sense. And I'm not saying it would be impossible to do something like that, but you really have to think that all the way through. Every network is different. Every protocol is different. Every network's tokenomics are different. A lot of them are very similar, but there's, little nuanced differences network to network. And for most of the networks that I'm invested in, that are being used by large corporations, entire governments, all right, if their crypto were to be banned, let's just say all governments come together and say we're going to ban all cryptocurrencies, but we're still going to use these networks. So it would pretty much suck all the liquidity out of their network. They really have no funding, no resources, and no real reason for anybody to continue building and developing. I guess they could, in theory, the central bankers maybe could just print money to infinity and fund all of these networks for the next 5 or 6 years, to where they actually have the resources available to be able to grow and scale to where this whole thing can get implemented all the way across the board. I guess that could happen. There's not a lot of, if you look at the incentive structure, there's a lot of incentives for them to not do that, and there's not a lot of incentives for them to do that. And it brings into question whether or not this would even be a successful transition, because it's all about establishing trust and confidence with the general public. And at some point in time, they're going to have to start doing that with this technology, if this technology is going to be implemented all over the world. And at some point they will, when the market is higher than it is right now. They're not going to do it when the market is down 90-95%. They're going to tell you it's a scam and you're going to lose all your money, which nobody knows what the future holds, guys. This whole global implementation process, it could change today, tomorrow, next week. I'm not here to say that there's 100% certainty that all this tech is going to continue to be implemented and they're all going to go to the moon. I don't know what the future holds. I'm just acknowledging the trends up until this point and talking this through to assess probability of different scenarios, right? And I have personally assessed for myself that there's an extremely high probability that all these technologies continue to be implemented. And there's a very low probability that there would be something that happens that they continue to use these networks, but decide to ban the very thing that really gives those networks their liquidity and most of their resources. And if you look at who's going to benefit the most, if everything continues as is, who's going to benefit the most? The institutions. They're going to be, and already are, some of the largest stakeholders, validators, and contributors to these networks. So, yeah, I have tried to think of certain scenarios for a year and a half. I've tried to think this through so many different angles, Now, I don't think that for most of you, I don't think there's any real, if there is a doubt, I don't think it's a huge doubt that blockchain technology is going to continue to move forward. I think that most people at this point, most of y'all at least, not most in the mainstream, come to that conclusion. But still some concerns around crypto, right? And guys, crypto is really just the tokenized stock of these tech companies. And so they're either going to monetize this or they're not going to monetize it. So if they monetize it, all the institutions can benefit in ways that it's hard to even imagine. All of them can benefit, right? If they don't monetize it, it kind of just really becomes more of an expense because somebody's got to fund this tech so we can continue to grow and scale. Because we still got a long way to go before everything is fully implemented. And we're completely 100% on a new blockchain-based internet and financial system. So I try to think this through every imaginable way. And so those are my thoughts on that. All right. Now, okay. So let's say that all of this continues to move forward and crypto's not banned, right? And guys, the only really major country where people are throwing that out as a potential scenario is the US. So just want to make that point. Russia and Putin have openly said that regardless of what the U.S. does, that U.S. cannot stop Russia from using these different technologies, right? So if I'm thinking about this and I'm saying a year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years down the road, if assuming this all continues, if we're going to be on a blockchain-based financial system, internet economy globally, where do I want to be? Well, I want to be in the blockchain networks that are going to be used, in my opinion, the most by large institutions and that have the most important use cases. All right. Now, when I'm looking at that and I'm saying in a world where everything is hooked up to some type of distributed ledger / blockchain, where it's integrated into every single web-based application and platform. In that type of a world, I find it very, very, very hard to believe that the network that is probably the most technically advanced by a decent margin, ICP, is not going to become one of the biggest things in the world. Unless there's some other thing out there that has more functionality and scalability than ICP that we just don't know about. Because the thing is that when it comes to functionality, there's very specific things that they have laid out as far as the new system. Owning your own data is one of those things, right? And when I'm looking at functionality network to network, I don't see it as even being a possibility to do what they're trying to do, move everybody to a blockchain-based system without something like ICP. It's not just owning your own data, cross-chain interoperability, and numerous other things. Just the fact that you can actually build directly on chain and not have to use AWS, Google, Microsoft. And this is not really necessarily an ICP video. It's just a big picture video looking at the entire space. But if blockchain tech is the future, I want to be invested in the most technically advanced blockchain network. Now, not that it's just the most technically advanced. It also has the biggest R&D team by a wide margin, many of these people being former senior engineers and researchers at Google and IBM. So, on top of that, I want to be invested in all these other networks that are already being used. Algorand, already being used by El Salvador, Nigeria, Bank of Italy, the Italy Insurance Authority, and 30 other financial institutions in Italy. Stellar, the Chilean stablecoin, the Peruvian stablecoin, both live on the Stellar blockchain. The Ukrainian CBDC, live on the Stellar blockchain. The first government-regulated stablecoin, live on the Stellar blockchain in Japan. So, most of the things that I've said in this video may seem like, I don't know, they may seem crazy, but they may seem like common sense. But, it's when all you hear is lies, it starts to just create a distorted perception of reality, in my opinion. And I think that that's really what's going on. And there's so many lies. The propaganda is just guys, I'm telling you, I've never in my life, I wouldn't even, had you told me a year ago that we would be here today and still nobody would know what the hell is going on, I wouldn't have believed you. If you would have told me that adoption would have moved forward in 2022, and it did, I could list off a lot of examples, huge examples with some of the largest institutions in the world. If you would have told me that last year and you would have said, this is all going to continue, adoption is going to continue, all the announcements are going to be made public, and in a year from now, an equal or lesser amount of people is going to know what's going on, I just wouldn't have thought that it was possible. I really wouldn't. So that kind of speaks to how big this propaganda machine is. And guys, I would really strongly recommend that you have a degree of respect for the level of propaganda, and that you not believe that you're above being manipulated by different things on the internet. Because there's so many psyops. It's guys, even me, I don't want you to ever just blindly trust or believe something that I say. Okay? If I get something wrong factually, always let me know. But you can't trust people online. And in all reality, including myself, I don't want you to just believe me, right? Go fact check things that I say. Go do your own research. But you just don't know. You really, and you can't know whether the person, guys, you really have to look at how important it is for the people who are running the show, the people who are actually moving this implementation process forward, how important it is for them to have total control over the narrative of this whole thing. Because regardless of what reality is, that doesn't really matter. It does, but for the sake of this example, it doesn't really matter what reality is. What matters is what the public believes. So they have to ensure that they can make the public believe XYZ, irrespective of reality. And so you can't have people like me saying things like this and just talking about verified, factual examples of this tech being implemented all over the world and all throughout the U.S. government. I hear so many people in the comments, Gary Gensler, the SEC. Guys, for all I know, Gary Gensler comes out tomorrow and says, we're banning all crypto. But all I know is that, I could go on a long spiel about everything going on with the U.S. government and blockchain technology. But, I went over this yesterday. So for all I know, I can't see the future. All I can do is look at the available information and go from there and assess the situation, come to a conclusion, and put some type of action plan in place. So, but they have to control the narrative. They have to. It is essential. The pro-crypto people, right, who are also, oddly enough, pushing mass fear all the time, and the anti-crypto people, the Stephen Deals of the world, who blocked me after I told him to get on Twitter Spaces so we could debate this. they have to, in my opinion, they have pretty much total control over both sides of this conversation. And that's why the debate never happens. Guys, just think through how a debate would go with somebody calling crypto a scam. Crypto's a scam! Okay, cool. What about Swift using Chainlink? What about El Salvador, Nigeria, the Bank of Italy, all using Algorand? What about all down the line? What would they say? What do you say? It's an unwinnable debate, and that's why it doesn't happen. And that's why a lot of these NPCs in the comments don't want to come on the show, because they have no argument to make. All these narratives and all this bullshit only exist so long that somebody telling the true story that never gets to have a big enough platform to where they can actually challenge these fake narratives that are being pushed out. Because all the pro-crypto people, they're fine letting all this bullshit and fake narratives continue. These are the same people that were encouraging buying back in January, who are now encouraging selling low. So they are on record, if you go back and you pull the clips, encouraging buying high and selling low. That's who these people are. So, guys, that's really all I got. I think I could probably keep going, but I think that's all I got for right now. You just really have to come to your own conclusions, guys. People have abandoned objective reality. All right. And so it's up to you to determine what you believe. But I would also suggest that whatever it is should be in some way supported by the available evidence. So, yeah. That's all I got, guys. That's it. Take care. Not financial advice. Make your own decisions. Do your own research. And I would focus more on doing real research rather than watching propagandists. And, there will come a time where, guys, I've been calling these people propagandists since last summer. There will come a time where, in my opinion, where that becomes clear. And when it does, see, they can just segue right out of their bearish sentiment. Some announcement can come out, market all of a sudden takes off. Now, oh, well, this changes everything. How often do you hear that? See, they can sit here and push all this bearish bullshit to their viewers forever. And then all of a sudden, let's say the market, let's just say, speaking hypothetically, one day, Bitcoin runs up like 80%. And then alts just explode because some announcement happens and they just decide to pump the market. These people just come out, oh, God, this changes everything. I know I was super bearish and encouraging you to sell last week, but now this changes everything. That's how hard it would be for them. Not hard at all. And nobody's actually holding these people accountable. Nobody's calling these people out. So it just all continues. The machine continues to move forward. All right, guys, that's it. Take care. Have a good night. I will see you in the next video.